Welcome to Transcending Comics, a podcast dedicated to trans representation in comic books, manga, and webtoons, both on panel and behind the scenes. I'm your host, Tommy, and I'm joined today by my go-to expert on all things Supergirl and Wonder Woman, my favorite comic shop employee, and my good friend, Kyle. Welcome back to the show, dude.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I mean, I had you on in one of our early episodes to cover Galaxy, the Prettiest Star, the last trans superhero graphic novel put out by DC. And since then, you've done a pretty great job keeping me in the loop on every Dreamer appearance in the DC universe. So now that Dreamer has her own graphic novel with the DC YA line, Bad Dream, a Dreamer story, I figured I'd have you back on the show for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you invited me again. It'll be fun.
So getting right into it, I know that you were familiar with Dreamer long before I was, since you were a big fan of the Supergirl TV show. So tell us a little bit about like your association with the character, like what it was like for you seeing the first trans superhero on TV, like as that show was airing.
Oh, it was so cool. I will admit, a lot of the hype for Supergirl was the Supercorp and that shipping thing, and but then also a lot of pretty much every Supercorp person on Twitter was also just super hype about Nia and the introduction of the first trans character, and just it was really cool just seeing that.
Now, I was only able to catch a couple of Dreamer episodes in preparation for the show, like her first appearance and the one where she comes out on television. How long is it into her time on the show that you find out she's trans? Like, is it during that big coming out episode on TV, or does she interpersonally?
Oh, no.
Before then?
Oh God, I can't remember exactly. I feel like we know pretty early on. God, it's been so long since I've watched. I can't exactly remember, but it's earlier than that for sure.
Okay. Now, before we get into the book, I wanted to take a second to get into the creative team behind the book and our familiarity with both creators. So the book is written by Nicole Maines, the actress that played Dreamer in Supergirl, and who seemingly has had a hand in writing just about every appearance of the character in the DC universe, as they've started to incorporate her from being a TV-only character to now being part of the greater DCU.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. Like, imagine being she's like, Nicole Maines is basically the architect of this character. Like, that's hers.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised with how well this has gone, because like I did read a smattering of her other appearances in the DC universe, like the first couple Suicide Squad, Dream Team issues, some of the event tie-ins and the DC Pride shorts, and like Nicole Maines is really good at this. Like, too often when we get like some level of like movie, TV, or celebrity person writing in mainstream comics, like you can tell that it's not coming from someone who knows how to write a comic. And like that's no shame on them. Like, there are a lot of great novelists who struggle to write a good comic. So like the fact that someone that's like as active as Nicole, doing movies, TV shows, activism work, like that she's also able to pull off writing really damn good comics that were like I was genuinely impressed with, like especially the Suicide Squad ones. I kind of felt like, dang, I wish I was covering these. Like those might even be more fun than this. And this graphic novel is great as well. So yeah, Nicole Maines, I think, is awesome. I think she's about as close to a real life trans superhero as we get, both with playing him on TV and being like a big activist. Like when she was in 5th grade, she was part of the first ever state Supreme Court case to rule that trans students can use bathrooms aligning with their gender identity. So like she's been fighting the fight since she was a kid. So Nicole Maines is a genuine badass.
Yeah, she really is.
Now, this will seem off topic, but Kyle, were you a Zoe 101 kid growing up?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, this is going off Wikipedia here, but did you know that's allegedly where Nicole Maines got her name from? Was
no,
the character of like Nikki or Nicole?
Oh my God, I don't even remember that character, but that's amazing.
Yeah, as like I know we've mentioned that show before, just because your dog's name is Zoe, so of course that's going to come up. I'm a millennial, so this will happen. But yeah, like, okay, this is perfect. Now, as for the art of the book, the art was done by Ry Hickman. And Kyle, are you familiar at all with Ry Hickman's other work?
I wouldn't be surprised if I read something with their work in it before, but I don't remember.
Yeah, weirdly, we just covered a piece of their work in one of our recent episodes because they did the art on the DC Pride celebration of Rachel Pollack. And we just had Joe
Oh
Corallo
yeah.
on, and he wrote that. So I'm glad I'm getting to talk about work from both creators. And they also did some work on Gem and the Holograms that I've seen, since I also had Sophie Campbell on the show, who also did artwork from that. I know Rye did a lot of the work that wasn't done by Sophie, and yeah, awesome art, does its own like distinct style in an established series, but does some cool stylized stuff with it. And I haven't read any of their other work, but I do have one of their books on my radar, Moth and Whisper, which I've heard good things about. Kind of cool cyberpunk story about a genderqueer protagonist. So it's something I've been meaning to look into for the show, and yeah, I've only heard good things so far. So hopefully I'll get around to that one in the near future.
Yeah, that does sound cool. I'm gonna add that to my to read list too.
So with our creative bases covered, shall I get into the summary of the book?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. And just a heads up to the listeners, we're going to be getting a little more in depth with the plot breakdown of this story just to help hit some of our main points. So do be warned, there's going to be some spoilers ahead. I'll try to remember to put a time marker in the show notes to tell you where you can skip to if you want to avoid spoilers for the most part. But be warned, spoilers ahead. Nia now is a 15-year-old, half-alien transgender girl living in the hidden alien refuge of Parthis on Earth. Her mother was famous on her home planet of Naltor for being the head Seer, a group of precognitive superheroes tasked with defending their planet. Nia's family is sure her sister/cis turf, Maeve, will be the one to inherit her mother's powers, as she was the only daughter in the family assigned female at birth. Parthis is a community accepting of all aliens, as long as they fall within the gender binary. Nia is treated as a misfit among misfits, and after a bully breaks her nose in a game of kickball, Nia's precognitive abilities awaken. Quick side note on that. Kyle, did you catch that that's something that they planted like well ahead of time? Like in that coming out episode on Supergirl, Dreamer specifically mentions that on TV of breaking her nose in a game of kickball when she's 15.
Oh, I don't remember that. Like I said, it's been a while since I've watched the show.
I mean, don't blame me for forgetting there, since I read this first and then started researching the show a little bit, seeing her other appearances. And I just thought that was really fun that like something that small that they slipped in there, she tied into the book. So that was a fun callback.
There's definitely parts that I actually do remember from the show that do come up in the book. And I think Nicole did a really good job of translating, like making the story that was in the show translate to the DC Comics world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be sure to shout those out too, because I'd be curious to know what else they foreshadowed in the show. But not wanting to upset her sister, Nia runs away to Metropolis. She struggles to escape her issues, however, since every time she falls asleep, her nightmares about the future return. Shortly after her energy manipulation powers activate while escaping an attempted mugging, Nia runs into a familiar face for fans of the show, Galaxy, the Prettiest Star. Nia makes quick friends with Galaxy as a fellow trans alien, as well as her girlfriend Kat and trans ballroom queen Yvette. Her three new friends give Nia exactly what she needs in a situation like this, a night out with other queer people. They take her to Metropolis's alien haven of A-Town, also known as Gay Town, and Nia gets her first look at queer community, found families, and ballroom culture. And also, side note there, I am so glad that we just got like a general ballroom competition closer to something like Pose, maybe, and not just another damn drag competition like everyone else uses.
Yeah.
Right. Anyone out there, any especially straight and or cis writers that are listening to this, if you're writing queer characters, there's more than just drag shows. Please look it up. There's other things you can depict that queer people will gather around for entertainment. Please, God, stop giving RuPaul attention. That night, Nia's nightmares return. After Yvette calms her down from a panic attack, Nia is approached on the rooftop by Sybil, a fellow seer from Naltor. She tells Nia that her mom was a deserter that fled and abandoned the planet of Naltor, but also promises Nia that she can help her pass her powers onto her cis turf, Maeve. Nia decides to head home to confront her issues, and Galaxy, Cat, and Yvette come along. Nia has a brief moment of connection and understanding with her mother, but after a disastrous confrontation with her sister, who proceeds to say some textbook turfy shit, Nia passes out. She gets some sagely advice from her mother while in the dream realm, but their conversation is interrupted. Sybil had followed Nia back to her home, and Nia's mom goes out to confront her. A superhuman conflict ensues, Nia's mom is killed, Galaxy is injured, and Nia is almost killed as well until she discovers the power of self-acceptance and defeats Sybil through the power within her. In the epilogue, we find out that just after her mother's funeral, Maeve ran away from home and into a story to be continued in DC Pride 2024. Nia accepts her responsibility as a seer and becomes the superhero Dreamer and makes a vow to find a future she can be proud of. All right, with the summary out of the way, Kyle, tell me about your first impressions after reading this book. I know you'd been anticipating this for quite a while, just like me. So yeah, I'd love to know what your first thoughts were.
Well, I really liked it, of course. Also love the art and everything. And I didn't know how involved Galaxy would be in this, because I knew she would be at some point, or like in a little bit. But I was really glad to see that she was like a lot more, and her and Kat and Yvette were like, they really helped Nia a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like that she found such a good support system there.
Yeah, I really like this book's depiction of queer community and like trans
Yeah.
kinship. Like, I've heard the joke made that that's the problem with most trans representation in mainstream media
Oh my
is
God, yes.
there's just one trans character, and there's
Yeah.
never just one of us. Okay,
No.
there's something about hormone replacement therapy or just transitioning in general that makes us slightly magnetic, but only to other trans people. We're all drawn together. I don't know if it's like some kind of destiny thing or what, but chances are if there's one trans person in your circle, there's a couple more trans people in that circle.
Same with just like being queer in general. Like, there's no just one gay friend.
Mm.
Why would they hang around a bunch of straight people? Like, they're not as fun. Like,
Yeah, we even see that like a bunch of straight aliens aren't as fun. Like
yeah.
her neighbors suck. And I think this makes a really good follow up to Galaxy as a read, not just because we see her again here and it's close to that same time period, but like Galaxy's very much a book about self discovery and like finding oneself and like coming to terms with one's own identity. Whereas this is one of those books that starts right off the bat with the character like knowing and being open about the fact that she's trans. And
Yeah.
this instead then gets to focus on like that first experience of finding queer and or trans community and like just how exciting that is the first time you go out and all of a sudden you're not weird or like there's other people like you and like there's something you want to be part of. There's found families. You're like, oh, shoot, there's a world for me out there. Okay, I don't have to just live in a closet. Oh my God.
Exactly.
But yeah, on Galaxy's appearance, I know when I had Jadzia Axelrod on the show, she had mentioned like those fears of having a character she created and put so much of herself into now being in the hands of someone else. Because
Oh God,
Jadzia's
yeah.
mostly had like creative control of Galaxy's other appearances as well. But yeah, she had said that Nicole knocked it out of the park with this. I would agree as well. I really
Oh
like
yeah.
how Galaxy is depicted in this, and it just feels like a good step to fill in that gap between her own graphic novel and her appearances in Hawk Girl.
Yeah. Yeah, that must I can't imagine like a character that you put so much of yourself into. Like DC owns Galaxy basically. Like,
Hmm.
and knowing that you're not gonna be the one that always gets to write her, like that would be scary to me.
Yeah, I'm really curious who gets to be the next person that writes Dreamer as well. Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
assuming Nicole Maines is going to hold on to that as long as she can, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, she's a real actress. Like she's in movies and stuff. Like, which by the way, see Bit. I freaking love Bit. Great trans vampire movie. But yeah, like eventually she's gonna be too busy doing movie stuff to write comics. Because I've heard about how time
Yeah.
consuming comic writing is, and like Nicole's going for it, like writing for like big event tie-ins and like
Oh yeah.
surprisingly telling good stories in said tie-ins, which is not an easy feat.
No.
So like she's keeping up with a lot and coloring within the editorial lines super well. So I don't know. Maybe if this comic thing ever takes off for me, maybe I'll be gunning for that position, but I don't want to get in Nicole's crosshairs because like she's one of the like number one people that I'd love to have on the show someday. But one of these trans DC superheroes, I hope to get to carry that torch for, because I mean, I'm gonna do indie stuff if I make a trans hero. I'm not gonna let some big two company have mine.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But I will say, I think of the DC young adult graphic novels I've read so far, I would probably call this one my favorite, since I thought it had like the perfect balance of the like very down to earth human element that these have all had, while also incorporating just enough like superhero or like superheroic elements to it. Because like some of the other ones, like the Beast Boy graphic novel, pretty strong one about like peer pressure and stuff, but like Beast Boy never transforms and only uses his powers in like the most mild way. And some of the others are also kind of like that like it's not a superhero origin story. It's more a bit of like almost like a pre-origin story of when their powers or like when the person they're going to become starts to trickle in early life. And like Galaxy, like I think the book is better for it, but like Galaxy doesn't have any kind of superhero fight to it. Here, like it's not a big part of the book. It's not meant to be an action book, but it does give us that like big climax and the mentor figure passes away and Dark Phoenix moment, all that. So like it feels like more of a well-rounded superhero comic, just with a much bigger focus on those human elements. And I'd really love to see more about like, I mean, we kind of skip ahead quite a ways from Nia finding her powers to her becoming Dreamer and having the costume. And I hope Nicole gets a chance to explore those years as well, because I would definitely come back for that.
Oh, me too. And like, I kind of feel like, I don't know about you or how you feel with some of the other like these graphic novels that DC does. Like I think Galaxy and this one, they feel like they're technically like canon to like Earth 1 or Earth Prime or whatever. No, I think it's Earth 0. Prime Earth, I don't know what designation.
It changes every couple of years.
Yeah, it does. And then the other ones are like not on the same Earth necessarily, because I don't know that some of them they like. It doesn't seem like it goes along with their story, like actual stories.
Yeah, I think it depends on like how recently that created the character was. Like, since Dreamer and Galaxy are both new creations, you can tell these kinds of stories with it still being in these worlds. Whereas, doing something like with the Teen Titans characters, like Robin and Superboy, like it's tough to tell this kind of story while also incorporating it into the universe without like having to break continuity a bunch.
Yeah,
but
that would be hard.
From what I've seen so far, though, I do really like how we get a better picture of what like the average person in the DC universe, like what their life looks like, and seeing like, oh yeah, there's even Midwest aliens out there now, and I'm like, okay, awesome. Like, I mean, Marvel is notorious for not telling like any story outside of New York unless that's in the title of the book that it's not New York. And DC's got like a lot of fictional cities, but like they all seem pretty superhero populated as needed by the book. So it's cool to see depictions of places that still have weird supernatural stuff going on, but not with the big super glossy superhero fights going on too.
Yeah, like don't you ever wonder what's going on here in Iowa, like with superheroes? Like, is there any?
Yeah, I know at one point in Marvel they designate a team to Iowa. I think it was like Force Works or some like super D-list team. Like it was during the initiative phase. They like have a superhero team for every state. You're not gonna freaking see them. They don't have time for 50 books about D-list characters. But yeah, they do mention which one Iowa has, and it's a lame one. I just remember that.
Is there a corn themed hero? I need to know this.
Ooh, I mean, there's probably some level of corn syrup in Combo Man.
Oh no.
Hard to say, but I'm sure there's some level of cornmeal or other corn ingredient in combos, and therefore in Combo Man.
God.
Oh, like if you've ever worked in corn though, like I've detasseled, which is where you just walk through cornfields in the middle of the summer and have to wear long sleeves because corn is sharp as hell and will cut you up. Like when in Signs or other horror movies, when people are running through cornfields, don't
Yeah.
do that. Let whatever is coming after you get you, because I promise it's a better fate than running through corn. So
Or
like
at least protect your face.
a corn-based superhero, or I mean, if they're from here, probably super villain, uh, super dangerous. Like we put corn
Yeah.
in everything because of subsidies. They'll like take it out of your gas tank and now your car's ruined. They'll throw super like razor sharp corn leaves at you. Like don't mess with corn person, all right?
Yes.
But one of the things that like I noticed on the reread here early on in the book when Nia is running away from home after her powers are awakened, she just pulls out like a fully packed bug out bag from under her porch steps,
Yeah.
which tells me like, oh, I think this girl was planning this for a while, which
Yeah.
checks out given her treatment as a trans teen in this town. But I'm like, oh, dang, I'd like
Which,
to unpack
like,
that.
I feel like it's so weird that like it's a town of aliens and they're like they think that being trans is weird. Like you're from different planets. Like how is that weird?
Yeah, like I like that the book calls attention to that. Like they don't just gloss
Yeah.
over it. Like with Cat and Galaxy, they have the conversation of like, oh, well, you're like happy to be yourself, and they're all trying to conform to Earth culture. But like,
Yeah.
are you telling me every alien there sticks to a gender binary? Or like
Yeah.
there's no shapeshifters in the bunch or anything else that's like super weird, or I don't know, people shedding exoskeletons and turning
Yeah.
into like giant bug aliens. Like there's got to be weirder things than a trans person here.
I mean, like, think of like things on Earth that have weird gender and sex stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, I think what fungi have weird like ways that they reproduce
Mm.
and everything, and like clownfish. Like, do you
Oh
know about?
yeah,
Yeah, the clownfish are weird.
there's a whole
The
thing about it in the People's Joker. I love it.
it's just if it's normal on Earth, think of how normal it would be on other planets.
Now, my thought is though, like, okay, you have this school and town full of aliens that like the weird variations that make them all physically different. That's like true for every single one of those kids. They're all probably really
Yeah,
self-conscious about the 13 eyes on their back. That's an actual example, or like being made of rock and all these other things. So like that's probably just off limits. Like as soon as one kid starts slinging mud about that, all the other kids probably get on them because they're all super ashamed of that or like
yeah,
self-conscious. When it's something that like the person has a little bit of agency for, I can see how like trans kids, like emo and scene kids, kids that do a weird haircut or like anything that like makes them stand out a bit or do any kind of self-expression, that's open season. Like we can bully the shit
yeah.
out of them for that, and let's get on it so no one makes fun of the 13 eyes on my back.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, like, not fair, but it makes sense how that would happen.
Like, hey, hate isn't logical, and teenagers often aren't good people because they're still learning how to be people. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, gosh, and even like the frog woman that's like a grown ass married woman, like just stiffing her early on. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, bye Nia's mom, bye Nia's dad, bye Maeve. Silent walks out.
Yeah.
But I do also like they're doing it with aliens so they can get away with it pretty easily, but they do manage to show that even the aliens in A Town, like some of them are still privileged pricks among
Yeah.
aliens, and they call them on that shit. And I thought that was a good little touch. Like we all know that queer person that
Yeah.
pulls that stuff, and we're like,
Yeah.
we've been there. Thank you, Kat, for calling that out. And yeah, you also get some of the good early queer culture moments. Like Nia is a typical early tran and says something ignorant that's like deeply hurtful to Yvette and her found family early on. I'm like, okay, yeah,
Hmm.
this is something that like a lot of coming of age queer and trans things I think kind of gloss over. Of like, there's a bit of a learning curve, and like even queer kids say some pretty stupid, ignorant stuff while they're
Oh
learning
God, yeah.
things. And like you don't have to freak out. Like in the book, everyone like is cool about it after a few minutes. Just like yeah, I think that
Yeah.
gets I think too often do we like have a character come out and like bam, they just know the terminology, or they get a crash course montage sequence from the wise friend, but we never get to see that fuck up. And I think that's an
Yeah.
important moment that, yeah, even queer people screw up and like it's okay. Doesn't mean everyone's going to hate you forever for it. We all do it.
Yeah, I mean, no. What do you mean? You didn't get beamed with the knowledge when you came out? They didn't send that to you?
Well, I mean, I did, but I'm a computer science trans, so like
Okay, I
I
guess
knew
that
how to
makes sense.
download that. I still had like the Ethernet port and the HDMI cables and
Okay,
everything on my
okay,
laptop.
okay.
All you discless idiots, yeah, good luck. You're not getting the trans terminology CD-ROM. Now, do you have anything else you want to add when it comes to like the depictions of like queer culture as expressed in Aliens or like in A Town in this book?
Um, I don't know. I mean, what about the part with like the guy on the TV, Lockwood, talking about
Yeah.
that's a very obvious like what's the word like allegory or
Yeah, like a parallel to,
yeah, parallel
yeah,
to
like Fox
just
News types.
yeah, talking about trans people. I'm pretty
Mm,
sure Lockwood was, I think, the villain or the name of the villain in season 4 of Supergirl. He was Agent Liberty, and he was very anti-alien.
yeah, that was a name that I recognized my second time reading it after seeing the show.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a recurring character from that. So I really liked all of the things from Supergirl. I can tell Nicole sprinkled throughout. Which yeah, you said there were a few other things in there that you noticed. Dig in. I want I want to know what I missed as not a Supergirl fan.
Well, the part where she reveals to her family that she's the one that got the powers, and Maeve says something of along lines of like, "But you're not a real woman," which it's not a true fact or a true statement, but that's what she says.
Mm.
And she did the same, like, had the same reaction in the show, and it was heartbreaking. And yeah, I remember that part. And oh God, what else? And just also her mom dying, and like
Mm.
that basically like backstory episode. And also, her mom died in that episode as well. And yeah, I that's the only kind of few things I remember distinctly.
Yeah, I like how she's reshaping a lot of that, but staying pretty consistent with like, okay, this is how it played out in Supergirl, and we're gonna get as close as we can with this, but like it doesn't have to be the same in the main universe continuity. And
Yeah.
like, and she's doing a good job. Like in Dreamer's other appearances in like Lazarus Planet and Suicide Squad, we've gotten like flashbacks to some of those moments. And I think it's really cool. Like in Suicide Squad, we get to see it in like a much more like traditional monthly comics art style rather than the young adult DC art style. And it's like
Yeah.
way more of a horrifying scene in that because they can get away with a bit more.
Oh, I did remember something. I'm trying to find the page. Another thing that like alluded to this show. God, where was it? There, it was a part where they kind of showed Nia's future.
Mm, yeah,
Oh
that
God, I can't
I mean, there's a
find.
lot of those moments in there, but I was curious about those since there's so much like distinct symbolism in there, or like there's a lot of very specific imagery in there, and
Yeah.
it was
Oh, I
very
found it.
okay.
Supergirl is in the shot there at the
Mm.
very end, and I love that. Also, I think this guy, like you can see it with face with the three dots. I think that's supposed to be like Brainiac 5 because her and Brainiac 5 are together in the
Oh,
show.
that does look like his costume. And yeah,
Um,
then Dr. Fate's helmet, I think that ties in with the Lazarus Planet stuff because, like,
yeah,
right off the bat, she talks about a vision she had of the golden helmet and bad stuff reflected in it.
yeah. I really hope that her and Supergirl eventually become friends in the comics because I don't know. I love them as friends in the show. It was so good, and
Hmm.
I love her friendship with John. But come on, can we
Hmm.
get the girls together, please?
I mean, maybe we can get it in a more roundabout way. I know in person we've talked about it, but Mags Visaggio had a pitch about like a short, like a 12 issue miniseries or something where she wanted to have Superboy, the Connor Kent version, like
Oh
come
yeah,
to terms with his trans identity and like that actually being his issue about living up to Superman is like even if he were to become Superman, this role still doesn't feel right. And so if we don't get Dreamer and Supergirl in the same book sometime in the near future, like I think it'd be really cool if she forms a connection with Connor Kent and like
Oh yeah.
that helps. And like there's some foreshadowing about that. There was a backup in Action Comics that Mag's got to write where
Mhm.
like it's in there, but they couldn't say the quiet part out loud, but we all knew what
Yeah.
she was going for because she was pretty clear about it online.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really hope we get to see that someday, like at least in Elseworlds or something. Come on, DC. But I would like to touch on some of the other Dreamer books so far in the DC universe. Like, I
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to finish the Suicide Squad ones yet, but
Mhm.
anyone who reads this and likes it, or just wants a different kind of jumping on point, if you're not into young adult graphic novels, seriously check out the Suicide Squad one. Like, I had admittedly dismissed it at first because I'm like, oh, okay, the new character, and you're lumping it in with one of DC's more recognizable ones, is probably going to be cookie cutter story, celebrity writer. And then I read it and like, first issue, really strong. The characters all have like very good, distinct voices. And I'm thinking like, okay, this is really good. It seems like this is going to be a typical Suicide Squad story of like infiltrating a thing, doing some ethically questionable stuff. And then no, like first 5 pages of the second issue, that's wrapped up and like we're getting into
Yeah.
deeper, bigger event related stuff. And like it's got a really interesting fast pace. It's asking cool ethical questions and it's very distinctly different from the tone of this book. Like it's kind of surprising that it's the same writer within about the same year writing both
Yeah.
stories. But yeah, Nicole's been unnatural so far at working within the DC universe.
Yeah, it's really good. I loved the interactions between Nia and Harley Quinn. Oh my God, they were so funny and
Mm.
cute. Also, Nia and Bizarro, I thought were really sweet. I think there was a moment I was when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I love Bizarro.
Also, for readers of this book, like I hope they maybe tie this into like a deluxe edition someday. But Nicole Maines wrote a Dreamer story in this year's DC Pride collection, and that
Mhm.
picks up like almost right where this one left off, and like kind of works as like a more fleshed out epilogue almost of like Nia tracking down Maeve and like stealing back a book of her mother's that she needs to like help unlock her powers. And
Yeah.
also getting more into like, no, Maeve as a sister has always been pretty terrible about the whole trans thing, which
Yeah.
makes me wonder like if that's going to be something that they reconcile like early on, or if they're going to lean maybe into like more of a sister supervillain dynamic between the two. Because I think they've set up something really cool. And like, even though she's a freaking turf, like Nia did kind of bring some trouble to town that got their mom killed. So like Maeve's got some interesting motivation beyond just being kind of a bigot. And yeah, I think that there's a really good potential hero villain dynamic there.
Oh yeah. I think I'm really curious to see where this goes. I hope it doesn't get like super like transphobic and stuff just because I don't always want to be reading that, to be honest.
Mm,
Like we deal with that so much of that in real life. But yeah, I could see her just being like angry about like being like, you took my powers.
yeah, and I would be shocked if within the next 2 or 3 Dreamer installments, or if she gets her own series, like I see Maeve and Sybil probably teaming up. Like that just seems like the
Oh yeah.
comic book thing to do.
Well, first we gotta see what happens with Dreamer in Absolute Power, because Amanda Waller is still manipulating her.
I do like what we've seen elsewhere now of like what Dreamer's powers look like doing dream travel and stuff and going into this dream realm. Like, I think that opens Dreamer up to a lot of interesting stories with some of the more fringe characters, the DC universe, or like just doing some creative, distinct stuff in her own books that you wouldn't see in other big two books.
Well, I mean, if you watch Supergirl, you would know about her powers, like all of them.
Kyle, there's you in a comic book shop. I know you know how much superhero media there is. All right. There's
I
I just
know.
don't have time to revisit the Berlanti verse, and I'm not gonna. I'm sorry. I just it was a bit of a chore going back and watching it now. It's fine television, but
I
it's
mean, that's
not
that.
for me.
Okay, I love Supergirl a lot, but it's not a good show. Like, I'll be honest. Not a lot of the times it's not very good.
It's
Um,
I wish I had it when I was a little bit younger. Like I wish this could have been my
yeah,
Power Rangers, but uh No, like I'm really good. I'm really glad that the generations younger than me have it as an option.
Yeah, me too. It was like I think it's not like hard hitting television, but it was very fun to watch through the years and just be crazy online with people during that time.
Was that your corner of Tumblr?
Yeah, I think that was more when I moved to Twitter. I think when I was on Tumblr, that was more about anime stuff. My during
Nerd.
when I was more, yeah, I know. Man, you should have seen me during my Kill a Kill days on Tumblr. I that's when I got a little popular on there.
Hmm. Were you doing fan art or something, or just coming in with the hottest
I
takes on
don't
Kill a Kill?
I don't know. I think I just interacted with people in the right way. I don't really know. I
Hmm.
just said a few goofy things and I think people liked it.
Yeah, that's social media. That's really that's social media at its best. Sadly, it's
Yeah.
I wish everyone just got there with saying goofy things and not spewing hate, but it's not
Yeah.
the world we live in. But any final thoughts on the book before we move on to the question of the week?
Um, I don't think so.
All right. So, touching back on like Dreamer and the potential for her to interact with other like fringe DC characters or other corners of that universe, I'd like to know what DC character or characters you'd want to see Dreamer cross over and interact with next, and also what non-DC characters you would hope to see in cross-company crossovers.
Well, I there's two at least for DC that I think would be interesting to see. In general, I want to see more of Circuit Breaker. I want to see him get more stuff other than just being like in the Pride anthologies. Like, do you know who I'm talking about?
Let's see. They're a Flash-related character, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like connected to the Still Force.
And Transmask character at that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Badass.
He goes by he they, so
Hmm.
he just needs to be in more stuff. And also, just having more trans team ups.
Hmm.
I think that'd be really cool.
That seems pretty common too. Like I saw Galaxy popping up in other Pride stories or Pride Month ones, not even written by Jadzia. And like, I do like how much they're embracing that part of the DC universe. Of like, of course, all the queer characters know each other. Like that
Yeah,
that
exactly.
checks out. Like if there's
Yeah,
only like if you can count on two or three hands the number of trans superheroes, like they probably are on a Discord server together.
exactly. And another one that I think would be interesting to see, technically he's a DC character, the Sandman. Like,
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting, like, and kind of address that he's not technically part of the same universe, but like because they're in like a dream area, maybe. Like she meets him in like the dreaming kind of.
Yeah, like that's exactly who I was thinking of when I saw her enter the dream realm with the other characters for the first
Yeah.
time. And like Dream slash Morpheus, whatever you want to call him, Sandman, like he was part of the mainline DC universe when his first couple volumes launched. Like we even see him interacting with that incarnation of
Oh,
Justice League, and like those were all in continuity at the time. They just kind of grew away from that over time, is my understanding. I haven't read the whole
okay.
series, but yeah, like it would totally be within the realm of like possibility for Dreamer to come across Dream, and I think it would make sense as like kind of a late game development for her, since yeah, this is the god of her superpower.
Yeah. I just think it'd be really cool.
Like that whole DC dark corner of the universe, I think would be really cool to see her interact with. Like Swamp Thing, I think you could tell some
Oh
really
God,
cool
yeah.
stories with. Like, do plants dream, and what do they dream of? And Constantine would be another good one.
Oh yeah. Oh, just basically Justice League Dark. Make her part of Justice League Dark, and she could team up with cool people like Zatanna and Wonder Woman. Hello.
Yeah, she needs a bit edgier of a costume before she gets into Justice League Dark. Like, I don't know, throw her in a
I
trench
mean,
coat or
look at
something.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well,
Wonder
Wonder Woman
Woman's
gets
like
a
the
pass.
leader. Okay, that's fair.
Uh, but that is something I'll say though. In the Suicide Squad issues, they almost immediately throw Dreamer into a bomber jacket, and that is my favorite look for any
Oh, I love
superhero in
it.
tights. Like, oh, put them in the tights and a bomber jacket. They got that bigger torso. Like, that's a good look. I love it.
It does look really cool.
But as for non DC characters, like the obvious answer is Freddy Krueger, but I feel like you can
Oh.
tell like a really interesting story around that. Like in my opinion, best Freddy Krueger movie is the third one, where the original final girl comes back and is kind of teaching these kids how to fight back in the dream against Freddy. And I think Dreamer is perfect for a story like that, of like, I don't know, maybe even doing it with superheroes of like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're Kryptonian, you're still vulnerable in your dreams. And like Dreamer's the
Oh yeah.
only person that can face a dream-based threat, and like teaching people how to do Inception shit to fight back.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I didn't get into Freddy Krueger a whole lot. I mean, a little bit as a kid, so I don't know how I didn't make that connection though. So that would be a really interesting one to see.
See, one that like I don't necessarily want to see it, but I think for like marketing and brand recognition things, it might be a smart move. I've seen Stranger Things has started to cross over with different books. Like they just did a Ninja Turtles Stranger Things crossover, which
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know who was asking for that, but hey, Stranger Things is big. I get it. Whatever you got to do to sell comics, it's a tough industry. And I think Dreamer actually could do something cool in that, like with the nature of the Upside Down. They both come from like weird, small Midwestern towns. Like I think the vibe of those two things actually would work pretty well together. Like if you're gonna make Stranger Things crossover with anything in the DC universe, I mean, first do like Teen Titans or something, but after that, Dreamer makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be cool.
What about you for non-DC characters?
Okay, I've been sitting here trying to think of something and I'm not entirely sure. Oh God.
I mean, a little surprised you didn't jump to Powerpuff Girls.
Well, I don't know, because I'm trying to think of like characters that are kind of related to like dreaming and stuff. And I don't know. Hypnos from Hades. I don't know.
Okay.
That would be funny.
There we go. Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. I know how much you love Hades, so yeah.
Oh my God, I love that game so much.
I could see some like that art style would kind of work well with the DC young adult style as well. So
oh yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done Hades comics yet. Like I know.
Oh my God, I want them so bad.
Yeah, there's a ton of money to be made in video games and a lot less money to be made in comics, but like we're all here for those character interactions. Like I don't really care about seeing Zagreus's Hell run. Like I just want more queer Greek gods being catty to each other. That's all I'm asking for.
Please. More Megra, please.
I'm
in love with her.
All right, Kyle, anything else you want to plug before we sign off?
Well, if you want to see my comic hot takes that aren't actually really hot takes a lot of the time, I do have a comics Twitter now. It's just at Kyle Reads Comics.
I'm going to be following that. Thank you so much today, Kyle, for joining us. Thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise on the women of the DC universe, and especially for giving me Supergirl context so I don't have to watch all of Supergirl. You're doing the Lord's work there.
You're so welcome.
All right. Well, if the listeners at home have requests or recommendations for comics or creators you'd like us to cover in the future, you can send them our way on social media. You can find us on the Transcending Comics Instagram and Facebook page. On Twitter is at Transcend Comics, or email us at transcendingcomics@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you again for giving our podcast a chance, and give a special shout out to Ray Day Parade for designing our logo. Our intro and outro music this week is A Little Soul and You've Been Starring by Carlson. Check out more of their music on carlson.com. Join us again next week as we continue transcending boundaries and exploring the colorful world of trans, non-binary, and genderqueer representation in comic books of all kinds. As the curtains fall on this episode of Transcending Comics, remember that comics have the power to inspire change in countless worlds, including our own. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep transcending.